welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 352. And I was doing a little calculating before class today and was realizing that I believe it will be exactly session 360 when we get to Gandalf's speech on the bridge of Khazad-dûm confronting the Balrog, probably on the short list of one of the passages we've been looking forward to talking about for the longest time. It's a big deal. And so for those of you who are like marking your calendars or, want to make sure that your grandchildren can attend or whatever it is, session 360 looks like it's going to be the one, he says confidently, in which we get to the confrontation on the bridge. Right. Now, Bjorning, I mean, what are the odds that we would have, get distracted and end up going back to Rivendell or whatever, between now and then. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm sure it'll be fine. Before we get going, just one really quick announcement tonight. And that is, I wanted to let you guys know that it is almost time for our Signum Fall fundraising campaign. So I'll be talking more about the campaign as we go, but I wanted to let you know that I'm doing a launch event on Thursday evening. That's not this Thursday, but next Thursday, October 30th. So the night before Halloween, on All Hallows Eve, I'm going to have our fall fundraising campaign launch event, where I'm going to tell you guys some really fun stuff that's coming up with Signum University. Going to give you a little bit more, talk a little bit about our vision, what we're shooting for, and what is a really, really big moment in the history of Signum University coming up here. So that's going to be stuff I'm going to be talking about next Thursday on the 30th. And then in addition, I'm going to be doing something else. After I do the official launch of the fundraising campaign, I'm going to do a special session that same evening, just in that same session. I'm going to do a special session, which some of you have done with me at different Moots. It's been a Moot activity, and I've never done it online yet, but I'm really excited to do it online. What it is, it's my randomized literary discussion game, in which and I've done this several times, and it's been really fun every single time. It is a proof of concept of something that I've always said would be fun to do, and that is to roll dice and randomly choose two paragraphs so I could do two paragraphs from The Lord of the Rings. I can do two random Tolkien paragraphs from anywhere in his corpus. I can do like a random Tolkien paragraph and a random non-Tolkien paragraph. And then we just see what we get, and we have a discussion of those paragraphs individually and together. It's super fun. I love doing this because it's completely it's like totally unscripted, completely unanticipated. And we just see what we see, and find what we find. And some really, really cool things have come out of this. I've really enjoyed it every time I've done it at a Moot. This is the thing I do at Moots now. Whenever there's like an extra time slot, and I'm like, ooh, can I do my random thing? So we always have this. It's super fun. So I'm going to do that. So we'll do that together next Thursday night. Again, October 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern time is the schedule. It's a little earlier than normal. That's what we're going to do. It should be, it should be a great deal of fun. We could put together a play-at-home version of it. Yeah. And Druid's Fire, yes, I have finally taken your advice, and I do have a full set of dice now permanently stashed in the Moot case, so that I'm always prepared now. Druid's Fire always used to tease me because I several times just like totally forgot to bring my dice. But yes, totally done it. So, anyhow, That is, oh, so Bjorning, oh, I use all kinds of dice because it's all different. It starts with 20-sided dice, though, I'll have you know, Bjorning. So like when we're beginning to roll, like which volume of the Lord of the Rings are we going to discuss? You know, I always start with the D20. Yeah, yeah. Well, my favorite die is actually the D12. That's always been my favorite one. But the D20 is also fun. Anyway, so that's what's happening next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Normal channels, I'll be broadcasting just like I am tonight, but it'll be next Thursday night at 9 p.m. And then, that's it. That's the main thing that I wanted to announce here tonight. Okay. Also, other than to say, wonderful to see folks at New England Moot this past week. We had New England Moot here in New Hampshire this past week, which was awesome. And it was fun to get to see folks. Fencing Frog, got to meet Fencing Frog. He was there. That was wonderful. And several other people. Silk Westgate was there, and a bunch of folks. So, and anyway, yeah, it was great. It was lovely to meet new friends and to see some old friends. Flamifer was there. He gives a talk usually. It was great. It was really fun. Anyway, very cool. So that was great fun. Looking forward to our next Signum next Moot is in Ohio, right? Ranger Moot in mid-November from the 14th through the 16th, if I'm getting my dates correctly, of November, out near Cincinnati. So we are headed back out towards the Midwest, I say, coming from the East Coast. I'm going towards the Midwest. But it will be great fun. There it is. 14th and 16th. I was right. Fantastic. So yes, and that will be our final fall moot as we prepare for the busy spring moot season. Though I would also mention, as I've mentioned this before, but I'd mention again briefly, if you haven't heard, the Prancing Pony is doing a moot in December, the weekend before Christmas on December 18th. It's going to be down in Fort Worth. That's going to be really fun. I'm hoping to make it down there, actually. So I'm still finalizing plans, but I think I might be able to make it down. Really looking forward to going there. The Prancing Pony always puts on a really fun moot. It's great to see them and their folks. So, yeah. And Cunctator. Hey, Cunctator's here. Yes, Cunctator's our wonderful facilitator for Ranger Moot. So looking forward to that. All right. Tomas, Tomas is here. He was at New England Moot too. Fantastic. Okay, let us get back to the text and learn how not to skewer hobbits. Bjorning, yes. In Texas, though it's in Houston, is the Hobbit Cafe where we were yelling Gron last year. Yeah, that was Houston. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Back to the text. I was tempted to begin with the last slide again, but I thought that would be too tempting. So I decided not to, but I can refer back to it if we need to. You will remember that he had we'll just peek. Just briefly peek as I've gone through the whole thing. Peeking back. He had just said, all the wall gave way and the roof of the chamber as well, I think. So when he says all the wall gave way, I assume he's just said a sentence before that the door burst in pieces. So I think when he says the wall gave way, what he means by the wall is the wall around the door. Right? So it's not just that the door broke, the entire wall in which the door was located gave way. Gave way is a really interesting phrase because, like, what does that mean exactly? Which way did it did it just fall to the ground? Did it fall in? Did it fall out? The door bursts in pieces. Gandalf flies backwards. So, yeah. It's gave way. Gave way sounds like. Well, see, David Michael, that's exactly the problem. If I didn't have the information about Gandalf flying, I would think gave way, from Gandalf's perspective, would mean that it fell in, like away from him. So I would have, putting back then what the information about Gandalf, it would sound like Gandalf flew one way and the door and the wall flew fell the other way, for instance. Jackie, thank you for finding that. Jackie notes that when Tom Bombadil sings his way into the barrow, the inner end of the chamber fell in with a crash. Now, that one, of course, isn't directly parallel from like a physics standpoint, right? Because it's a much more unilateral. The confrontation between Tom Bombadil and the Barrow Wight is much more one-sided, right? And not only is it one-sided, is it lopsided, right? But there isn't even a confrontation in the sense that what Tom Bombadil is doing is interrupting. Like the Wight is in fact doing magic, right? It's words have passed into an incantation, but the incantation, it's uttering words of power, but they're directed at the hobbits. And then Tom Bombadil, Mr. Jolly third party comes in, right? And kind of wrecks that up. And his songs are stronger, so you'd expect the wall to go away from him, right? Yeah, Aspen, that's exactly right. Kurtzimus says that Tom Bombadil, is the wall. Exactly. With reference to the 1980s Kool-Aid commercials. Yes, that's it. It does very much seem like that. But anyway, Aspen, I agree that I was trying to think of what the verb give way made me think of, like what visual image it was in. But you're right. It's a dam giving way. That's exactly the thing that I was trying to put my finger on. Yes, when a dam gives way. So when something holding something back stops holding that thing back. Yes, exactly. So what is what pressure? I mean, the thing, the reason in which this doesn't necessarily help us is that there's pressure from both directions, right? Now you're right, David Michael, that pre-word of command, the Balrog's push was stronger, right? The door, he put a shutting spell on it. There was a counter spell by the Balrog, and the door began to open, right? So the Balrog, as far as like the direct pressure on the door, the Balrog was winning. Then Gandalf speaks, does his command thing, and that's what proved too great a strain. Though again, for what is not exactly clear. For everything, it kind of seems, right? So yeah, right, too great a strain for wall cohesion, Kurtzimus, exactly. And Gildala and I agree, all the wall is interesting, emphasizing the amount of force. Yeah, he doesn't just say like, the door and, a little bit around the door, like the entire wall gave way. Yeah. So again, it's really hard for me to imagine it just falling straight down. Maybe it does. Maybe it just crumbles. If the wall just shatters, the door bursts in pieces, and then the wall shatters, it would, I guess, mostly fall down. And the roof gives way as well, though that's speculative on his part. Yeah, Fencing Frog, I still do like the suggestion that the fabric of Arda is giving way. Yeah. Nancy, I do agree. The thing, whatever it is, right? Which is presumably the Balrog, is still pushing. So, yeah. Does Gandalf's command result in the shattering of door and wall? Which means it's the Balrog's continued push that pushes him down the stairs? Yeah. Remember also, they were feeling it in the wall. Yeah. All the wall gave way. Also, you've got to think Tolkien really just also enjoyed the phrase all the wall. And it's just a fun phrase, right? All the wall gave way. It's just that whole thing. First you have the repetition of all and wall, and then you have the assonance of gave and way, right? All the wall gave way, and the roof of the chamber as well, I think. And then well picking up wall, right? Exactly, Varnendale. I hope that all y'all enjoyed all the wall. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly, David Michael. 4 A's with like the shift of the vowel sounds. Come on, that's fun. All the wall gave way, and the roof of the chamber as well, I think. Mudmore suspects he wrote all the wall did fall and then changed it, possibly. All the wall gave way would work in British pronunciation, I believe. I mean, they wouldn't, the British pronunciation of all isn't quite like my American pronunciation of all, but it would still be different from gave way. It would be more like all, right? All the wall, but they would say all and walls the same way still, and differently from gave and way. Yeah. But it is always important to remember. No, it's not a silly question, Bjorning. It's always really important to remember. It's like a less extreme version of what happens when you're analyzing rap lyrics, right? And you have to remember that it's an oral medium, and so it doesn't really matter what it looks like to you on paper. It matters in the pronunciation of the rapper, right? So the same phenomenon is true of Tolkien's prose. It's just a little bit less extreme. Sometimes it's more extreme, but yeah. So it is always important to remember, because sometimes I know that sometimes I can get so wrapped up in my own, like in reading things aloud and hearing things in my own ear, but I will get trapped into hearing it in my own pronunciation in my own ear, which is like fine. It's not like it's not illegal or something, but it is important to remember that in doing so, we may in fact miss some of the nuances that Tolkien was playing with, because different vowels of his will rhyme in his pronunciation than would in mine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, this is me not spending much time. This is me avoiding the temptation, to spend much time on that. So I'm glad we didn't get caught in. I'm afraid Balin is buried deep, and maybe something else is buried there too. I cannot say, but at least the passage behind us was completely blocked. Ah, I have never felt so spent, but it is passing. And now what about you, Frodo? There was not time to say so, but I've never been more delighted in my life than when you spoke. I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. What about me? Said Frodo. I am alive and whole, I think. I am bruised and in pain, but it is not too bad. Well, said Aragorn, I can only say that hobbits are made of a stuff so tough that I have never met the like of it. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree. That spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar. Well, it did not skewer me, I'm glad to say, said Frodo, though I feel as if I had been caught between a hammer and an anvil. He said no more. He found breathing painful. Cracked rib confirmed. You take after Bilbo, said Gandalf. There is more about you than meets the eye, as I said of him long ago. Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said. Let's stop for a second. Yes, Fencing Frog, I agree. Here is Aragorn trying to do hobbitry again and almost succeeding, but not quite. It's just, the problem I think is the code shifting. Like he doesn't get the whole rhythm of the thing. Like that spear thrust would have skewered a wired boar is still like hero speak, right? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to harsh on Aragorn here. Like, it's fine, right? He does try, Aranos. He really does try. But that's the problem. What he lacks that Gandalf has is the code switching from hero diction to hobbit diction, right? He shifts in register. He can shift in register from Strider to Aragorn, but Strider, Longshanks, stick it not Strider, his sort of rascally persona at Bree, is still not hobbit diction, right? But he really is. He really is trying. He just doesn't quite get the diction right. But I will say, however, his middle sentence there is one of my favorite. Like, seriously, that's like as far as like personal interactions are concerned, not like the high epic moments and stuff, but just like really fun personal interactions and personal sayings. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree is one of my favorite lines in the whole Lord of the Rings. Like, I just absolutely love that line. Yes, when he shifts there, Bjorning, that I agree with your characterization of that as jocular self-deprecation. Yeah, he's good at that. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree. That's really great. That's super fun. But again, it's not quite hobbitry. Not quite all the way there. Now, JJ, you are ahead of me. You have just posted what is very close to the answer. Sorry, Emily, the reason I'm talking about Aragorn's tone here in this middle. He does seem to be, he's engaging with Frodo, right? And he's teasing Frodo, and engaging in this it's a hobbitry exchange. I don't think he gets I don't think he gets the diction quite right. Like, does that sound like something that Pippin could have said to Frodo? Like, Jackie, I think I'd go all the way to like, could have stuck a prize pig maybe. But even there, like, I think, cause see, notice the whole impulse, like the entire metaphor, the whole wild boar metaphor is, again, it's great. I like it. I'm not harshing on Aragorn. But that's not the right register. Pippin wouldn't say that. Exactly. Skewering a wild boar. That's like an epic, comparison. Right? I mean, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool to compare Frodo to a wild boar and say, like, that spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar, but it didn't skewer you, Frodo. And yes, I agree, Justin, that the spear thrust phrase, and somebody was just pointing out the hyphenated word alert there. I missed it. Sorry. I mean, I saw it go by, but yeah, spear thrust, right? That's almost like especially with the hyphenation, which makes it sound like spear thrust as a single concept, right? And so it's like he's almost using like a technical hunting term here, right? That spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar. Like, again, hobbits wouldn't say that. Like, has a hobbit ever skewered a wild boar? Like, maybe they go boar hunting. It's conceivable, like smallish boars, but I can't imagine boar hunting is very popular in the Shire, right? Bandobris might have, like, I can't absolutely rule it out, but the closest that he gets to like spot on hobbitry is the first sentence. I can only say that hobbits are made of a stuff so tough that I've never met the like of it. But again, like, never met the like of it? Hobbits don't talk that way, right? That's not how Pippin would say it. It's close. It's really close. He's almost there. He's too hero. He's too hero. He can't help but hero. Aragorn can't help but hero. Like, that's it. So Emily, I'm not saying that he has to talk like a hobbit. All I've pointed out before is that Aragorn, he tries to engage with them in that spirit and does engage with them in that spirit. But he can't really fit in. Gandalf does. Gandalf is fantastic at it, right? Gandalf is great at hobbitry. He only like goes astray when he's like a little bit too, like when he gets too peevish, like when he gets a little too harsh. But anyway, Kingsfolk, the hobbits grow their own food, and they certainly raise and slaughter pigs. Like, we know they eat bacon. But anyway, yes, Jackrabbit is suggesting something along the lines of apparently Frodo's body is made of the same stuff as Pippin's head, which is more like exactly what Sam would have said, or what Pippin might have said, except he would have said Sam's head, right? Yeah. And yes, Jackie, wild boars are very different from domestic pigs. 100%. Yeah, exactly. And anyway, so yeah, I totally, Dizzy. Gandalf has spent more time with hobbits compared to Aragorn. Totally. And yeah, I'm not judging. Like, I'm not just Aragorn. It's good. He's fine. He doesn't need to. I'm not saying he should. And when I say he's failing, all I mean is he seems to be engaging in almost that way. And it seems to me like he is deliberately taking down his diction. He doesn't take it down enough. And I love this. I love the fact that we get this kind of like slight awkwardness in Aragorn. We see him attempting to joke with the hobbits, but like instead of blending in, he just like he does his own version of it, right? And it's cool. It's fun. It's perfect for his character. Yeah, I mean, it's really, it shows, if anything, I think it shows a real sensitivity. This is something that I'm keen to pay more attention to now that we've really begun to identify this a little bit more, like the, hero diction and hobbit diction thing. I really want to continue to trace these kind of shifts in diction, and to see the different levels that we can perceive, like Aragorn, Boromir, the Rohirrim, right? When we get there, there'll be lots of, lots of interesting variations. So the fact that Tolkien is able to depict what I genuinely believe to be Aragorn attempting to take down his diction, but not really getting it as well as not being as good at it as Gandalf can be, like, that's an incredibly subtle distinction to maintain consistently. And I think he does it. And I think it's really cool. Chase on YouTube says Aragorn's hobbitry sounds like the difference between going to a private school and public school. Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, it's fun. It's fun. I like it. It's just, but I just think we can see that same pattern again. Other examples I would point to, just in case you remember, like the other example that comes immediately to mind is, Aragorn teasing Bilbo about the poem. Again, like almost even Elrond is kind of better at it than Gandalf is. But then again, Elrond's been living with Bilbo now for years. So, anyway, yes. And Jackie is recalling the boar hunt in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Yes, when you said that, Jackie, I realized I had a boar hunting scene in my head, but I couldn't peg that's the one that I had in my head, was the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight one. And that's why, again, like a boar hunting, that's something that amounts for me almost to something like a proof of what I mean when I say a boar hunting metaphor. Like, it's too hero, like you're still epic, right? When you're making a boar hunting comparison. Okay, Two Juice Man says, the change in the Hobbit speaking patterns when they get back to the Shire is one of my favorite parts of their return. Their voices are so different to the other Shire Hobbits. Phenomenal. That will be really, really fun to watch. And I agree, I agree with Bjorning that's a really cool paper topic, to be doing, to do a careful study, Andrew, of, like, I would pick one, like Frodo or Sam, maybe both Frodo and Sam, and look at some queer examples in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Fellowship of the Ring, and then again in the end, and see how you can show the difference in how they talk. Fencing Frog says, can't wait to talk about it in 21-25. So a week and a half ago, we had a board meeting. Our Signum University board had a meeting, and I got trolled at the board meeting about this by Matt DeForest, who's our previous board chair. And I was talking about, long-term projections and plans and things. And so I made a reference to something happening in 2030, but I misspoke and I said 3030. And Matt immediately chimes in and says, well, that'll line up very well with the ending of Exploring the Lord of the Rings. Anyway, which I thought was uncalled for. But anyway, yes. Balancemond, yeah. See, I'm going to be interested to see that. That's one of the reasons why I'm interested in tracking. Right, that's an excellent example of successful hobbitry, Kal-El Ross. Yeah, that's it. But anyway, Balancemond, looking at how Aragorn's own diction changes when he becomes king, I think is definitely going to be really fun to look at. But all right. Anyway, I want to go back to the end. You take after Bilbo. There is more about you than meets the eye. As I said of him long ago, Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said. We have been, for quite some time now, tracing Hobbit echoes, which this whole chapter these whole last 2 chapters have had a bunch of Hobbit echoes running through them. Do you remember the Hobbit echo? JJ, you quoted part of it. You got it almost exactly. I was thinking of the passage a little bit later than the one that you quoted, not the Balin bit specific, or maybe it's before. But the JJ nailed the exact scene that I was thinking of. It was making him think of that scene too. And that is the scene when Bilbo reappears in the circle of the dwarves in chapter 6 of The Hobbit. Yes, that's the one. What did I tell you? Said Gandalf, laughing. Mr. Baggins has more about him than you guess. He gave Bilbo a queer look from under his bushy eyebrows as he said this, and the Hobbit wondered if he guessed at the part of his tail that he had left out. Right? Let me read that again. What did I tell you? Said Gandalf, laughing. Mr. Baggins has more about him than you guess. He gave Bilbo a queer look from under his bushy eyebrows as he said this, and the Hobbit wondered if he guessed at the part of his tail that he had left out. Bilbo, of course, has left out the part about the ring. This, both the comment from Gandalf and then Frodo wondering if Gandalf means more than he said, is an almost quotation of that passage. And yeah, JJ was already thinking of the passage for a different reason. Aragorn's renewed respect was reminding him of Balin's reintroduction when Balin takes off his hood to him and bows, and it's a wonderful moment when he totally reintroduces himself, right? Balin at your service, as if they've never met before. Like, now I'm meeting you again for the first time. It's a fascinating exchange there in The Hobbit. So yeah, it is. I can see how Aragorn's comment made you think of that. Durbataluk, I do believe that we can safely assume that Frodo remembers this from Bilbo's book. Because, Lupita, exactly, Bilbo and an artifact are involved again, right? So this is the fact that there's an overt reference to Bilbo combined with, the unstated allusion to an artifact that Bilbo has kept secret, like an artifact gained on his journey that Bilbo has kept secret, right? I mean, it's a very close parallel. It's not the ring, but it's a very close parallel there. If all we got were Gandalf's quotation, then Frodo could merely be faithfully reporting this scene, right? The narrator's comment that Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said, that's the part which more than anything else convinces me that we are supposed to imagine Frodo actually thinking of that moment in Bilbo's story. That even at the time, when Frodo is sitting there, with his hand on his ribs, trying to breathe in the dark. Remember also, by the way, as a context remember in this, I keep forgetting that they're still in pitch darkness. They cannot see anything at all right now. Which means these are all just voices in the darkness. So when Gandalf says, "What about you, Frodo?" he's speaking to the darkness because he can't see. Like, presumably they'd know a little bit better if they could see Frodo, like, you know, holding his, I'm sure Frodo's like hunched over funny. Like, any of you have had rib injuries, you know, it does weird things to like your, and Sam's bloody face, April. Yeah, absolutely. But it's pitch dark. Nobody can see anything. Right. Anyway, so here's Frodo holding his ribs, right? And finding breathing painful. But in that moment, while he's doing that, I think that the Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said tells us that Frodo is thinking of that moment in Bilbo's story. But now, let's unpack that a little bit. We need to do that in two ways. We need to unpack it from Gandalf's perspective, and we need to unpack it from Frodo's perspective. Let's unpack it from Gandalf's perspective first. Gandalf says, "You take after Bilbo. There is more about you than meets the eye, as I said of him long ago." So, you take after Bilbo, there is more about you than meets the eye. That alone, let me just pause there for a second. I think that shows really clearly that Gandalf has an explanation, right? And here's the full set of, I think that Gandalf is like doing some math here. Not math really, but Gandalf is processing things. Like, I believe that like the train of thought that has gone by in Gandalf's head is, he says, if Frodo is not only not killed, but alive and whole and no more than bruised, Gandalf has an explanation why that. I mean, Gandalf knows that Bilbo had a mithril coat. It might not have occurred to him until this moment, right? We know Bilbo kept it on the down low, right? Nobody knows that he gave Frodo the mithril coat. So Gandalf might not have thought about it until now. But I think it's fairly clear that what we see Gandalf doing here is Gandalf is like, yeah, okay. I think there's a clear logical explanation about this, right? Bilbo must have given him his coat. And when he refers to Bilbo, when he says, "You take after Bilbo," that's like a wink to Frodo, right? Like, I see what's going on there, right? But at the same time as he does the calculation and says, Bilbo must have given him the mithril coat, he also does the even further step. He does the even further step to say, and the fact that neither Bilbo nor Frodo said anything about it tells me that he wanted to keep it secret. And why would Bilbo have wanted to keep it secret? He probably thought it was funny, right? It was going to be just between them, Bilbo said to Frodo, right? And Gandalf not only is signaling to Frodo, I know what's going on with the mithril coat, but he's also saying, I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to let you know, Frodo, that I know that you're wearing the mithril coat, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm not going to spoil Bilbo's joke. Yes, Durbataluk, his words were, thank you for quoting that. You must share this secret with me, says Bilbo. So, yes, Gandalf's line is a hint to the reader, Jackie. It's also a hint to Frodo that he knows, but he's not going to violate the secret. Now, I stopped it, though, after more about you than meets the eye, as I said of him long ago. That is, Jackie, as you point out, an explicit reference back to The Hobbit. Why is Gandalf doing that? Of course, the moment he's referring to is that moment when he told Bilbo that there was more about him than anyone expects. And what he was concealing was the ring. Why would he... It's one thing for him to tip the wink to Frodo and say, I won't give you away, but I know what's going on. That makes sense. But why would he couch that explicitly? Why would Gandalf make the overt reference back to that moment in Bilbo's story, which Frodo knows well? Is it a hint? Is he warning him? Gandalf. Is Gandalf warning Frodo? Careful about secrets. Because if you think about it, that moment when Bilbo pops up in the dwarves' conversation and conceals from them the existence of the ring is the first step down the path for Bilbo. Right? I mean, like, he wasn't far gone at that point, but that's the very, very first step towards going wrong that Bilbo ever takes. And that's the moment that Gandalf is reminding Frodo of here. Again, he's not revealing anything. He's not, bringing his secret out into the open. He's not, but it does seem to be a reminder. Yeah. Oh, I forget what Tom said about it in his book. Tom Hillman said about it in his book. I forget about that. I can't remember what he said. If any of you happen to have, there's an ebook version of that, isn't there? Tom's book. Anyway, right. Emily, it is Bilbo's secret. Bilbo asks Frodo to keep this secret with him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the Mithril Coat secret. There are some good reasons to keep it secret. Keeping it secret from the other hobbits and stuff is kind of a harmless joke. But nevertheless, in the context, I mean, maybe one way to translate, if we wanted to translate and make explicit the more serious hint that Gandalf is giving Frodo here, it might perhaps be something along the lines of ring bearers keeping secrets from their friends is a slippery slope. You might just want to think about that, Frodo. Right? No, Gandalf himself is not all that transparent. But then again, he doesn't have the One Ring either. And it's specifically, the context is not that all keeping of secrets is bad, but there is Bilbo's very first act. The very first thing that Bilbo does with his friends after getting the ring is keep a secret from them and lie to them about it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's, that seems to me, something along in the direction. If he's, yeah. And now, I hear you, Cunctator. Yeah, Cunctator. I hear you. Gandalf is panting from exhaustion and being nearly destroyed. Yes, though again, he's doing all this stuff in that context. I mean, he's the one who's making an obscure Hobbit reference explicitly. In what is, there's clearly eye winking to Frodo going on there. So like that, some hinting is definitely happening. Seems to me to be explicit. And that he's doing it while exhausted and after having been nearly destroyed is very impressive, right? But I was thinking the code switching he does within the first 15 seconds after being knocked down the stairs was impressive to me already. Yeah, anyway. So yes, Gandalf implying that there's more about you than meets the eye is not necessarily a good thing. I think that's true. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it, Bjorning. In Bilbo's case, that meant the evil ring. In Frodo's case, it means a secret that could be a gateway drug to ring temptation. Yeah, just like be careful about anything that like separates you from your friends, basically. That's a dangerous ring pattern there. But now again, let's think about this from Frodo's perspective. That's Gandalf's perspective. Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said. On the one hand, we have Frodo as narrator, sort of, ingenuously putting himself in the same role, right? As Bilbo wondering, if Gandalf's remark meant, if Gandalf suspected the truth, right? The phrasing here I've always found very strange. Frodo wondered if the remark meant more than it said. Of course it means more than he says. Like, he deliberately doesn't say everything, right? There's more about you than meets the eye. He doesn't say what there is more about him, right? So of course it means more than it said. How could it mean anything more? Yeah. So yeah. What it does say to me, though, that the final sentence there, is that Frodo is not sure how to take Gandalf's comment. Does Gandalf just get the joke, and is he joking? Does Gandalf know the truth and seriously disapproves? Right? And yes, April, you're right that it's dark with no nonverbal cues, which is also, I think, definitely a thing to remember here. Yeah. I certainly think to think about this from a third perspective, Jackie, the one you were talking about, from the Tolkien as a writer perspective, that Tolkien is clearly making a Hobbit reference, I think is unquestionable here. The parallel between Gandalf's comment and Bilbo's wondering, and then Gandalf's comment and Frodo's wondering, cemented by Gandalf's explicit allusion to saying of him long ago. I mean, Gandalf explicitly points to that quote. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, Tolkien definitely wants us to think about that passage. And when we do that, then when we just follow the invitation of the text there and put the two passages side by side, it's hard for me to resist the line of thought that I was going through before about Gandalf's perspective. That it's the secret about the mithril coat is not a big deal. But like even now, Frodo just had the opportunity to spill the beans. Everyone's worried about him. That spear thrust would have skewered a wild boar. Well, it didn't skewer me, I'm glad to say. He could have been like, yo, fortunately, uh, I didn't mention this before, but I'm wearing that magic, you know, coat of armor that Bilbo had, so I'm fine. Like that would clear it right up for everybody. But he doesn't say that. Remember also, Nancy, that's a really good reminder. The film can misguide us in this scene potentially. Frodo is much too old not to cotton on to what Gandalf's on about. Yes, Gandalf, or Frodo rather, is not a wide-eyed teenager. He's 50. Yes. Yes, exactly. Also, remember in the film, how they handle it in the film could have been something exactly Frodo could have done that. Notice the film does not do this. The film has him wearing the jacket secretly. But then as soon in the movie, as soon as he gets skewered and he's alive and everyone is shocked, he immediately parts his overshirt and shows the mithril coat underneath. And everyone's like, oh, that makes sense. And I know it's not pitch dark in the movie, so they can do that visually. Of course, even when it's pitch dark in the movie, it's never pitch dark in the movie because it's a movie and they don't like having nothing on screen. Right. But again, verbally, he could have done that. He could have revealed it. Right. As an explanation for why he didn't die. That would help them all to understand. So you might almost say that what Gandalf is responding to, you take after Bilbo, there's more about you than meets the eye, is not so much to the original secret, but to what Frodo just did. It did not skewer me, I am glad to say, though I feel as if I had been caught between a hammer and an anvil. And I think that perhaps what Gandalf is saying here is essentially, Frodo, I figured all of this thing out, right? I know exactly why you weren't skewered by that spear. And what you just said was this close to a lie. It's not exactly a lie. But it was this close. Like Gandalf is pointing out, you just avoided telling the truth to your friends. You could have told the truth to your friends. You maybe should have told the truth to your friends. But exactly, Gilgalad, you just lied through omission to your friends about that situation. And so, Frodo, I'm going to remind you of the fact that when Bilbo got the ring, the first thing he did was lie to his friends. And that's dangerous. In almost this exact spot, by the way, like somewhere a couple miles from where we're sitting right now, right? Yeah. And Justin, I agree. There's no great reason for Frodo to lie here. I mean, yeah, Bilbo said, share the secret with me. But I agree. It's bold of Frodo to assume that no one in the company is going to, notice a lie this obvious. Of course, what we're going to see, spoilers, in the next chapter, as soon as they're in the daylight and have their wits about them again, Aragorn's going to want to examine his chest, right? He's going to want to look at his ribs. And of course it's going to be found at that point. There's no point in hiding it anymore. If there was any point before, and there was because Bilbo said do it, and he's like, okay, fine. That's reason enough, right? If there was reason enough to do it, to hide it before, that reason is now surely gone. Nothing can be gained. Only harm can be done. So yeah. And yes, it was Bilbo who put Frodo up to the secrecy. Um, yeah. So anyway, the more I think about it, the more I think it's a warning. Because notice again, when Gandalf makes the comment to Bilbo in The Hobbit, it's not so much in response to like the mere fact that Bilbo has and is concealing a magic ring, but the fact that he's just lied about it. Gandalf can tell something strange just happened. Right? I'm not going to call it out. I'm not going to make a huge deal of it. I'm not going to, rake Bilbo over the coals of it. But like, what that story Bilbo just told doesn't add up. He's hiding something, and that's weird. And Gandalf just heard Frodo hide something, and he's saying that's weird, but he now has more data. Gandalf does. And he's like, that's weird. And that's dangerously weird for a ring bearer, in fact. Yeah, Nancy, it's a really interesting moment in The Hobbit. Nancy was saying, I wonder if this point is exactly where the One Ring was born in Tolkien's mind. Not necessarily, I think, but it's fascinating because there are some places in The Hobbit which, like for instance, the place right before that, when Bilbo is about to get stuck in the crack of the door, and remember when he goes into the back door, right? And the goblins are there, and the ring's not on his finger, right? The ring is Plato-ass joke. Plato-ass trick on its new, before taking a new master. That line, that sounds pretty ominous, right? But that line was not in the first edition. Tolkien added that in the second edition. So that like ominous thing about the ring doing something bad to Bilbo, right? Playing that trick on him. That's an addition after he already decided that the ring was evil now. But that passage from Gandalf's like being like, Bilbo, why are you lying? Right? That's in the first edition. And that's really fascinating. Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've not talked about a dangerous amount of this passage, and it's late already, but this was the thing. This is the main thing I wanted to wrestle with here. That, of course, in Aragorn's imperfect hobbitry. Oh yeah, one other thing. I do notice in Gandalf's speech in the first paragraph, the first paragraph is brought to you in part by the letters B and D. B, D. I am afraid Balin is buried deep, and maybe something else is buried there too. I cannot say, but at least the passage behind us was completely blocked. I've never felt so spent, but it is passing. And now what about you, Frodo? And then he's never more delighted in my life. I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. Lots of those hard plosives in that paragraph. Never more delighted is a lovely phrase, Bjorning. I agree with you. I have never been more delighted in my life. And that's a big statement, right? I have never been more delighted in my life than when you spoke. Yeah, that's a big deal. Gandalf's had a relatively long life, so that's a pretty big deal. I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. I love the little like eulogy impulse right after that, right? It's a great indirect way to compliment him. Like, see, now look, that, by the way, I feared that it was a brave but dead hobbit that Aragorn was carrying. That's good hobbitry right there, right? Notice how he compliments him, but he doesn't just compliment him straight up. Like if he just says like, Frodo, you were very brave, then Frodo would be all embarrassed and stuff, right? Like you can't do it that way. So instead, he calls him brave, but then but couples it with dead, right? I thought he was carrying a brave but dead hobbit, because it's like half like saying like that was brave but foolish, right? Yeah. The brave but is the first thing, Gildalwyn, right? You're brave but I'm going to insult you too, and the indirect insult is like brave but foolish, right? That like you know, but anyway, yeah. I do think you can be both brave and dead at the same time. But in fact, you know, many a lamented hero has been notably brave but dead. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, JJ. JJ points out that even the "never more delighted in my life" saying echoes that passage in The Hobbit where Gandalf is more pleased than all the dwarves. He's less surprised but more pleased than the dwarves to see Bilbo again, right? Yes. Yeah. So, Tomas, I don't want to make too big a deal of this, and I know Madman22 was suggesting also on YouTube that like Frodo doesn't lie and doesn't see why it's a big deal. Yeah, not saying he's lying. He lies by omission. Like he does deliberately mislead. He deflects. Aragorn's exclamations plainly amount to, how the heck did you survive? That doesn't make sense. Right? I mean, like that's clearly what Aragorn is conveying. And in response to that, Frodo doesn't say, "Oh, I can explain." Instead, he's just like, "Oh, yeah, you know, it's just me. Didn't skewer me, right? It would have skewered a wild boar, but it bounced off of me. Haha." Right? Like, so he hides the shirt. And again, I agree that there's no good to it. There's no point to it. It's gonna come out now that he's received an injury like this, or not received an injury like this. It's gonna become obvious. And he is misleading his friends about the situation in order to conceal it. Now, again, I am not at all saying that I think that Bilbo's impulse to keep it a secret is evil. I'm not saying Bilbo's secrecy there is evil. I am not saying it's even imprudent. You know, people are making comments about the potential of betrayal within the company. And indeed, remembering ahead, there will be plenty of times, there will be at least one notable occasion where the mere sight of the mithril coat is going to create an outburst of treacherous violence among comrades, right? Like that sort of thing happens. However, it is whether or not maybe Bilbo's initial idea was prudent, but I think that I cannot see Gandalf's words there and his explicit reference back to the fact that Gandalf himself, not just Tolkien with an oblique reference, the other Hobbit references we've been tracing have been generally fairly oblique. Like if you're not thinking of the Hobbit, it's fine. You don't lose anything. It's like adds an extra layer if you are, but it didn't actually quote the Hobbit. As I said of him long ago, is an explicit reference back to his words to this scene in The Hobbit, right? So Tolkien is being much more forceful here in inviting us to remember that passage in The Hobbit. And the question is why? Or rather, the question is, when we do that, what do we see? When we put this passage and the passage that Tolkien is explicitly referring to side by side, what is the consequence of doing that? What do we notice when we put those two things side by side? And the thing that just seems to me inescapable when we do that is that this moment in The Hobbit is Bilbo separating himself from his friends, lying to his friends about the ring right after he took the ring. Ring bearers should at least be very careful about keeping secrets from their friends, because the next thing they know, they might be putting on the ring and wandering out of Tom Bombadil's house, right? Separating themselves from their friends. That's yeah, Jackie, you were just thinking of that same thing. Exactly. Yes. And yes, no, Shelob doesn't pierce the mithril coat. She gets him in the back of the neck. Yeah. Above the coat. And at Parth Galen and at the Barrow. Yes, exactly. This, the temptation to separate yourself from your friends, to hold yourself aloof from your friends, that's dangerous for a ring bearer. And the ring is going to be pushing you in that direction. So be careful. Right. Again, that seems to me, so no, I don't think the secret originally is intrinsically foolish. I don't think it's intrinsically evil, but I do think I can't see any other way to read Gandalf's allusion to the Hobbit here than as a caution to Frodo. Careful. I see what you just did. Do you see what you just did, Frodo? I realize, because I think Gandalf does realize, that Bilbo asked you to keep this as a secret. But Frodo, do you think that's really a good idea at this point? Do you see what keeping that secret is doing? Are you sure you want to go that way? You might not. Because this remark, Frodo, definitely means more than it says. So you absolutely should wonder about that. That's what he's trying to get him to do. Yeah. Okay. Eric, I agree with you that not knowing when the seemingly innocent thing you're doing is playing into the ring's plan, that is scary. You're right. Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting, Fencing Frog. He has a magic ring, a magic sword, and a mail shirt that's almost invulnerable. That collection could go to a guy's head. It could. And what did he just say? Oh, that spear thrust might have skewered a wild boar, but me? I'm fine. Yeah, that's not a great look either. And again, I doubt, of the two possibilities, the keeping secrets and separating yourself from your friends possibility, or the starting to have really grandiose ideas of yourself, both of them are potential, ring fodder, right? Both are breaches in Frodo's moral, integrity that could be widened by the ring. But certainly the Frodo getting epic hero syndrome seems like the lesser of the two evils. Well, no, the less likely of the two evils is what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not that I disagree with that. That seems like the lesser concern here. And also less directly applicable, less directly relevant to the Hobbit passage that Gandalf is alluding to. And yeah, Jackie, it is easy to overlook because he's not exactly lying. He hasn't told a lie. But he did make a deliberately evasive statement, which he has just pointedly dodged telling them the truth about how it is that he comes to be alive. And that is, I think, the thing that triggers Gandalf's warning. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kingsfoil, if he doesn't want to say too much because he can't breathe, he has other options available to him. He could have responded to Aragorn by saying, mithril coat, ribs hurt, right? he could have used fewer syllables even than he did and still tell the truth. Right. But yeah, now he can't just show it with no words because it's dark. Nobody can see. But yeah, he could have said, Mithril. He could have said it in 2 syllables. Mithril. Sam would have known. Merry and Pippin probably would have gotten it. Gandalf's already put it together. Right? Yeah. Anyway. Okay. That's good. Sorry, let me just come back for 1 second too. Had I known, I would have spoken softer in the inn at Bree. What I love about that sentence is I think back to chapter 10 of book 1. I think back to the Strider chapter and that whole confrontation at the beginning and Strider's skepticism, very understandable skepticism of Frodo, right? I mean, remember that relationship pretty much began, the relationship between Aragorn and Frodo pretty much begins with Aragorn being confronted with some fairly compelling evidence that Gandalf has left the One Ring in the hands of an idiot. I mean, that performance in The Prancing Pony, like, he's got some serious skepticism about Frodo and his qualifications, right? And he gives voice to some of those. Like what he is like, both Aragorn and Gandalf are alluding back to an earlier passage. Gandalf all the way back to the Hobbit, Aragorn to chapter 10. And Aragorn is referring back to when he said, remember what he said? He said, like, unless you're made of a stuff more tough than you seem to be. He doesn't think, like, he's doubtful of whether they can hack it, the journey in the wild to Rivendell, right? So yeah, he expresses his extreme and now he's going back and making fun of himself, right? But he's not just making fun of himself. I think he's also, like, he is emphasizing, like, this is crazy. Like, had I known that, like, spears that could skewer a wild boar would bounce off you, yeah, I'd have assessed the situation a little differently back in Bree, right? Yeah, I agree, Green Great Dragon. Sam is the one who impresses Aragorn in Bree. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so it's a really fun, he's attempting hobbitry, he's teasing Frodo, but he's also teasing himself. And it's just doing the juxtaposition that Aragorn invites here is just fun, right? You go back to that scene and you remember that scene in the context of this moment. When, of course, like, they're all in a place which is like 1,000 times worse and more severe and extreme than what Aragorn was talking about, the trek through the wild on the way to Rivendell, right? It's just, they've both come so far and their relationship has come so far. And it makes what he said back then so ironic. And it's delightful that he recognizes it, right? I always find this so much fun, that sentence. All right. But it's late and we're done with this slide. Tune in next week when Gandalf gives very careful directions to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. All right. So that's what we're going to do next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. That will end our book discussion for this evening, and we'll have a brief field trip here. Thank you, everybody. Should be back again next week. Looking forward to that. And good evening, field trippers. We're going to head back to Moria.
Good evening, Corey.
Good evening, Druid's Fire. How are you?
Older.
You are older.
I still haven't got that hazard pay, though.
It's true. It's true. Druid's Fire is referring to hazard pay because I sang happy birthday to her at the Moot on Saturday, which was her birthday, which is why she needs hazard pay for enduring my singing over the microphone. But yeah, here we are. We're going to head back to the fiery depths of Moria here today. Flaming
Indeed,
Deeps.
so. Hopefully we'll be able to get to the next milestone and have it be one that's a little less of a tongue twister.
Yes.
Or, in other words, Dwarven.
Right, well, yeah, I don't think that's in the cards for a little bit. Okay. Oh, hey, Troy. Welcome. Great to meet you this weekend, Troy. Troy was at New England Moot too. All right. Okay, here we are. Finally back in. Gonna go back to Nazar Mechem.
All right, and then I'll get you into the raid.
Okay, great. And then we will stable master back to, what is that place called? I know that's the guard, not the stable master. Okay.
Dwarves must fight for
Starts with an
dwarves.
Right. Hoodnil Maiden. That's the one. Okay. Off we go, back through the Flaming Deeps.
I think I'm on a drunk goat. He ran right into a guard.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just clearing my little quests here. I grudge the screen real estate that it's taking up. Okay, there we go. All right, so we explored south down to Hoodnil Maiden last time with that strange, what looks like an arena pit. Now I want to go back up to this crossroads, the Crossroads of Ash. So as a crossroad, I mean, I can understand this being a crossroads. This is the main east-west hallway, which goes from wherever is to the west of here, which we haven't been yet, all the way through to the east, which is we're going to get to the Gate of the Seven Fathers, which we can see right here. There's the Gate of the Seven Fathers, which is this enormous, fantastically grandiose gate that leads approximately nowhere, as far as I can tell. Like, through the other side is some mining works and like not much in particular. It's a little weird to me. I still don't get, this is what I don't get. I understand that there's a crossroads. I understand you want an east-west road here, and then you've got south to Hoodnil Maiden, yeah. And then you've got north to wherever this goes. Where does this go, I wonder? So again, roads, crossways, I understand that. But why do we have this whole huge grandiose hall? And why the enormous gate there? That's what I don't fully understand. And also, what's up here? There's a glowing fragment of rubble here.
Yeah, it's a quest item.
It's a quest item, yeah. Oh, hey, look, we've got a downstairs over there. Oh, okay.
And you can get down there from the main pathway.
Right. I see the stairs down to it over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that actually helps me a little bit, because this whole big, huge hall that we're in is like a multi-level meeting of the ways here. So there is a way just north from here.
Indeed.
But it just isn't this way. Which means that this pathway north just leads us straight here to this building, which has no doors and is therefore, by the logic that we were adopting last time, probably a residence.
Most likely, yeah.
I've got to think this has got to be a private residence, don't you think?
Yeah, with some, a nice balcony to, people watch, dwarves and whoever comes in on that path.
It's got to be like some kind of manor house or something. Like I can't see it being an apartment block here on the random, like in this huge hall. It would also help to explain why this was also grandiose too. If somebody like helped build this thing and, was like, I'm going to have my, mansion down here. And so I'm going to help to make this like a huge, very grandiose crossroads thing. Man, they just stuck those crystals into this ginormous stalactite. Huh. Okay. Still don't fully understand why we need this huge gate when there's nothing formal behind it. Okay, but let me think a little bit further. Let me think a little bit further about what's behind there. Because it's easy for me to say there's nothing much behind there. Just mining works. Except these are the dwarves. They're not necessarily going to be thinking like that. Especially since what is through there is first a set of mining works and then the Silvertine lodes. Or the Redhorn lodes, rather. Which is where they mine the mithril.
Okay.
So this is, in fact, a gateway to the mining operations where they get mithril, which is kind of a big deal.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Right.
I was also thinking earlier that maybe it's to remind the dwarves going into work in the forges the lineage of their forefathers.
Make your forefathers
and
proud.
The importance of the work. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I could see how that would sort of work. Yeah. Because it's not, again, like dwarves working in the mines. It's different, right? I mean, it's dwarves. It's easy for us to think about like, oh, this is where the miners worked, as if that's some kind of bad thing, right?
No, I mean, it was like almost their sacred task.
Exactly. If remembering Gimli's words to Legolas about the glittering caves, to be a miner among the dwarves would be something close to being a gardener among the elves, or something close to that.
Or the hobbits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they call it a mine. A mine. The same sort of, people scoffing at mine, and Gimli's right there like, nah, man, you don't get it.
Right. Yeah, JJ has a really good question, though. It's for the dwarves, it's like the entrance to Disney World. Would the Seven Fathers indicate that mithril is for all the dwarves and not just for Durin's line? That's really interesting. The Seven Fathers does broaden it past. It's not just locally patriotic, right? It's not just like Go Khazad-dûm. The Seven Fathers does refer to dwarves as
all
a
seven.
whole. Yeah, like all of dwarfdom. So that is a really interesting connection, JJ. I'd never really thought about that. Perhaps. I mean, that would seem to be the impulse. I mean, it is interesting that right there. So, okay. I was resisting going down here because we do have I just wanted to peek off the edge of the stairs. We have just a downstairs area which goes through that passage. So I'll see that passage next week. I just want to get the lay of the land. I can't take too long because I'm already super late. But let's just see what's up this way. Since we're already on this level. We'll go north Because, yeah, north is going to go
Sweet.
up towards where we're coming to the edge of the boundary here. The burning stair, huh? And, whoa, I accidentally completed a explorer deed. Okay, so there's nothing down here, just this shelf around the stairs. Is that true on the other side too? Oh, yeah, no, we get these really interesting sort of side platforms over here. But they don't seem to go anywhere. Oh no, wait, this one does go somewhere. Oh, this one goes to a whole place. And from here we can see the downstairs north exit from another angle. This is a whole place. Tanoshush. We get a whole bunch of worms. This looks like a housing block. This is definitely lower budget housing, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
On both sides here, all of these housing blocks with no visible doors. And then down another level.
Another courtyard.
Another courtyard. More housing on both sides. Yeah, this is a whole little neighborhood over here. Another nice
And
view.
if these were rich dwarves, they would have stairways or something down to that road down there.
Yeah, you'd think it's a little bit isolated. I mean, it's a nice view. Beautiful place. I mean, I don't
Pretty
think...
convenient.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a slum over here, but it is a little... It's a little out of the way. It doesn't seem necessarily like mining housing. But now I think back to the forge in that arena place that we were looking at last week. It makes sense. In this whole huge cavern here in the middle, you've got two housing blocks, the one single block, which looks like one wealthy house over in the middle that we were looking at. And then this larger set of housing blocks over here, probably lower income. Then to the south, by where the stable master was, in Hoodle Maiden, there's there's a forge and an armory, right? There's like shops and things, right? So like official buildings, right? And then on the other side, in the other direction, you have the Gate of the Seven Fathers and the way to the mines. And we saw that there was housing more directly connected to the mines down there in the mining block.
Yep, so we did.
With two doors coming out either way to come to different parts of the mines. So, yeah. So I don't know who particularly lives here. Like, I wouldn't think it would necessarily be miners. It's a long haul from the mines, from here. But yeah, it's kind of a secluded little neighborhood for dwarves who simultaneously, don't mind kind of living out here on the ledge, in a scenic but remote spot, but also do have community among themselves as well, because it's a fairly big complex over there. And then we get back to the burning stair, which leads us out into the waterworks, right?
It does.
Okay, well, we're not going to go to the waterworks yet, because we're not quite done yet, but I do think that where we're going is north from here. So next time we'll go through the north, and I think once we get up there into this area in kind of the middle of the map, I'm looking at the map now, that's all that's left of the Flaming Deeps. We've been everywhere else.
Yep, we have indeed passed through most of the deeps.
Very good. So next week, maybe next week will be our last field trip in the Flaming Deeps, and then we'll head over to the waterworks. Cool.
Yep.
Very good. So yes, that...
Make sure you don't eat an hour before you go swimming.
That's right. That's right. No problem. Given that this is always after class, we'll be fine. All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. And I'll see y'all next week. Bye now.
Bye now.